Hello and welcome to Cinema Craptaculus, where we say a bad movie is just as hard to make as a good one, just a lot easier to make fun of. This is Dave, and with me are my uncrappy co-hosts,
Stephanie.
And John.
And today we're joined by the creator and host of the podcast World Gone Good. He also happens to be the former co-host of a little show called Cinema Craptaculus. Please welcome back Steve Silverman.
Yay.
Hi, friends.
Steve, how are you doing? It's like we just started talking 2 seconds ago.
It's like you just hit the record button.
So you have your podcast World Gone Good, which is a fantastic, optimistic.
Go on. Continue.
It looks for the good in the world, but which feels very good. But why did you create it? Why did you create World Gone Good? Why so much good?
It feels good, but it's not.
Did you create it because it was good, or was it good to create it?
Oh my God, I feel like I'm at a presidential, some sort of press conference, and the Fox newscasters are just throwing questions at me. Well, as I say on the podcast, I was out for a run one day, and I was trying to find a new podcast to listen to, and I was like, why can't somebody just make a podcast that is about good people doing good things with no fucking commercials? Because every podcast I listened to and found was like, I'm going to tell you 6 great things that are happening in the world after I pitch these books and these movies and all these products. So, yeah, that's kind of why I did it.
That are inappropriate.
Right.
They're usually inappropriate products.
Nothing to do with it. Good things. I just wanted to spread some good, and that's what we do. We're 80 plus. I can't believe I'm saying that 80 plus episodes in, and yeah, it's pretty exciting. I think this week, I'm interviewing a woman who refurbishes teddy bears. So if that gives you like an idea of how we do things over at World Gone Good, it's all over the place. But yeah, I'm talking to a teddy bear later this week. Now, if I froze on you,
that's
don't
really
panic.
great. But I just have to.
Sorry, if I froze on you, don't panic.
Sorry to interrupt, Steve.
Go.
I said to the Duchess.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Steve, but I do want to say today's Cinema Craptaculus is brought to you by Good Pizza. It's the pizza that tastes delicious. Get some good pizza today. Good pizza. And
Domino's. Also from the fine podcast Planet Going Nice. It's looking for all the nice things in the world, hosted by Steve Silverman.
God damn it.
And also silver knives when you just can't take it anymore and the world has got you down. Silver knives.
I'd like
Steve, I have a question.
3 knives that I could use to kill 3 Go ahead. What?
I have a question as you pull those knives out for what I'm going to say. But I remember when your podcast came out and when I started listening to it, and, we were going through a lot. We're still going through a lot, but really everybody was just, on Zoom calls and kids at home and God, a vaccine's going to come out and politics. And I remember something about you saying how, you needed something positive to focus on. And throughout your shows, a lot has still gone down. And yet you never seem to sort of veer into the political, into the negative. So talk a little bit about how you sort of keep that focus and obviously it has to do with finding guests that are doing good. But what do you do to sort of keep the mission statement going,
I invite, people who have positive things to say. I invite people who just want to share some good. I've tried to get Lindsey Graham on repeatedly. He just won't return my calls.
Oh, boy, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a busy fella.
Listen, I think we're inundated nonstop in real time, as we all know, by whatever we choose to be inundated real time. But as we all know, if that makes sense, like you can choose to turn on news and listen to a bunch of people hypothesize, sit around, rediscuss something. It's almost like, to me, like all the news channels have become like a soap opera, where like every soap opera, they sit around and they talk about, they always say things like they're restating a plot line that happened 3 weeks ago, but telling another person. And that's kind of what's happening. So I just try to stay positive, and try to have fun. And another thing about our show is that I try to keep it around 30 minutes. I think that's plenty length for a podcast. So speaking of which, I think this fucking podcast needs to get going, because I can already tell you bitches are going to go over 30 minutes. And no one listening to this wants to listen more than that of you. I mean, hey, thanks for having me. Let's go.
Wow.
Cinema Craptaculus, brought to you by Bullets. You don't kill yourself. Bullets kill yourself.
I thought you were gonna say brought to you by bullies. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think Ryan Reynolds would have a shot at being a guest on Steve's show until he hears our podcast. That's just all I'm going to predict.
Ryan Reynolds is welcome on my podcast or in my shower anytime. Back off, Stephanie. I saw him first.
Well, speaking of Ryan Reynolds and good, what that sounds really funny. Speaking of Ryan, oh Lord, what is better than one Ryan Reynolds? How about one Ryan Reynolds, a young Ryan Reynolds, and Mark Ruffalo for the dad? Netflix worked up a little movie with all those ingredients called The Adam Project. Yay.
Here's the rapid recap to catch you up.
Rapid recap!
Sometime in the near future, like 30 years from now, time travel is invented. And as with all great scientific achievements, it is instantly perverted for profit. To fix this, Adam, played by Ryan Reynolds, naturally steals a time machine and goes back to when time travel was invented in order to stop the invention of time travel. That sentence felt like time travel. Anyway, he ends up not going back far enough and crash lands in the timeline inhabited by his 12-year-old self, young Adam, precociously played by a very Reynolds-esque Walker Scobell in his first movie. Now with Katherine Keener's Maya Sorian, the big bad evil CEO who funded the Time Machine Project, on their heels, the two Adams are in a race against time to find Louis Reed, played by Mark Ruffalo, not just the father of time travel, but also their father. It's time travel, Deadpool style, in the Adam Project.
Yay!
That's a good read.
I think I just traveled through time into the future 10 minutes reading that.
You sure did. I was so excited for this movie to come out. I don't know why. The trailer made it look like a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I actually was surprised. I mean, I was surprised by this movie, meaning surprised by how much I enjoyed it, but also surprised that it existed, because I was like, wait a minute, how does everybody know about this movie? I hadn't seen anything about it, and apparently it had been in development hell for like a decade and came out of that. And
when this project was started, Ryan Reynolds was 12.
Yeah.
I
think Skydance had this in a drawer with Tom Cruise's name on it for at least a decade. And, with these deals with Netflix, I think these studios just scramble and go, well, what do we got? What do we got? And it's like, oh, and then they find this pile and they just retrofit it a bit. And
how do I get my screenplay into that pile?
That pile of sitting for 10 years?
Yeah.
Lots of favors.
We'll get a time machine and go back in time. Right. If you go back in time into about 2008 and put it on a pile now, then now it would have been made.
Yes.
You sound a little bit like the oh dear God, Spaceballs. When's then? Now.
I think that I can't imagine this movie after having watched it. I can't imagine this movie being a Tom Cruise vehicle, because he's not very funny, and this movie was funny. And I don't know if that's an example of like the Ryan Reynolds of it all, like that he infused it with a lot more humor, or what came, was the chicken or the egg kind of like.
No, when his Maximum Effort production company partnered with Sean Levy, because don't forget they'd just done Free Guy, and then probably were discussing Deadpool 3 even when they started this film. Ryan probably was given free reign to just smear his fingerprints and wittiness all over it, just like Red Project and everything else that seems to be surfacing in the Netflix sphere of Ryan.
Well, in the Netflix of it all, this did look like a theatrical movie. A lot of times it was like, I think,
with the exception of one thing.
The backyard. That goddamn backyard.
Are you talking about the set from Disney Channel's Bunked?
Yes.
Yeah, no, well, this is hermetically sealed because of COVID. So I gave them a pass on that, because I could tell that they had to pick their studio.
They couldn't film outside?
Not during COVID. Not during
COVID. The most safe place to be filming? They're like, let's go inside.
Well, I don't know how a worldwide pandemic had any, I don't know how that could have had any effect on Katherine Keener's CGI face.
All right.
Like, the one they did for the young version of
it made her look like Tom Cruise in the new Mission Impossible movie.
Well, on that note, too, is it me or was it me? But didn't young Adam look just like the kid that is Liam Neeson's son in Love Actually? I kept looking at that kid and going, oh my God, did they did they go back in time and get that kid and bring him forward?
That cat showed up as like one of the love interests / mentors in Queen's Gambit, and I about fell out of my chair because I was like, "Holy shit! It's the kid from Love Actually," and he's really weird looking now. But
you're right. You're right.
He was in Game of Thrones too.
He also played a young Paul McCartney in some Beatles movie. But no, you're right. He did look like it. That kid actually, I mentioned in the recap, he literally had not acted in a movie before. And I think he just walked in and they were like, he kind of, and I think they needed to cast, because, it's funny when you look at young versions of the actors, they're not going to cast that because they're just too dorky. Like young Ryan Reynolds is really kind of dorky. So they found a guy that kind of looks like miniature Ryan Reynolds. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's really about the personality too. I thought that this kid did a fantastic job. I'm not, I can sing his praises because I really was going to this movie kind of like, oh yeah, I got to watch this movie that I never heard of before. And I was really entertained. Like it was, he did a fantastic job for this being his first movie. I thought he was delightful.
He did a really good job, and he was fun to watch, and he had that kind of patter that Ryan Reynolds has, and it felt kind of good. I do think that he had it a little it was too refined for him. I would have liked to have seen the character be a little more of Ryan Reynolds in the making than instead of like fully formed Ryan Reynolds at 12 years old. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Like they kind of, they tried to speak to that by having it be like, like you always get in trouble because you have a big mouth. That's something that you always dealt with, and I liked that part of it because he at least explained it. But I understand what you mean. Like maybe he couldn't have been quite so polished at 12.
The big problem I had is the inhaler. Any goddamn movie. I texted you guys when I was writing it. I'm like, there's a fucking inhaler. Of course, the goddamn kid has asthma. But they dropped it. They dropped that whole storyline, and I was waiting. Where is the part where the villain has the inhaler, and he's like, either like he has to press the inhaler with this really sharp knife to like get all the gas out of it, like shh, like that, or he has to wave the inhaler at Ryan Reynolds, like, do you want your former self to die? Because that's what needed to happen. Like inhaler, young Ryan Reynolds needed to fall on the floor and gasp for air, and then adult Ryan Reynolds falls to the floor and gasps for air. But they dropped it completely.
No.
And then Joaquin Phoenix hits the alien with the baseball, or hits all the water glasses, and it kills all the little robots. Right? Is that what happens?
Yeah.
No, that's isn't that science?
And then Phoenix Rivers dies in a gutter on Sunset Avenue.
Right, after shooting De Niro in the face on TV.
But
I must have fallen asleep.
Hold on. He has to dance on the stairs too. He gives it that fancy San Francisco dance.
Well, guys, can we just jump right into the time travel thing? Because, every concept gimmick has to be thought out in its rules. We've talked about this in previous films where there's superpowers and stuff. And it's always a huge pit to write into. So sometimes you head it off to the past like they did in Endgame, where they say, Back to the Future was bullshit. If you leave to the past, then you're wherever you're at is now your present. That's your present. So they kind of quickly pulled some bullshit to sort of say that you can't change things, but which doesn't make any sense because that's exactly what they try to do in Endgame. But in this one, they don't explain time travel at all. He shows up clearly coming out of like post-apocalyptic Terminator 2 territory, and they obviously didn't have the budget to show us the future at all. So they kind of talk about it, and he comes back, and he's got this little wound that farts when he walks, and all they could have done is said, I've got a special future thing that I can put on it, but I just need peroxide. They don't really explain how he heals. So they're kind of avoiding explaining it. They're avoiding explaining a few things. But they don't explain really the rules of time travel. Or do you guys think they did?
They blow over the rules of time travel are harder than Ryan Reynolds blows into the present. Because
I like any time where you say Ryan Reynolds blows into something. Go ahead.
And harder.
And harder. Thank you, Stephanie.
Cinema Craptaculus, brought to you by Pornhub. Look up your fetish today.
But second time he's brought it up.
What was I talking about?
Time
it's
travel
too early. So the only thing they basically say is once things are fixed, you kind of go back into your own set world. You kind of like snap back, like almost like time's a rubber band, and it snaps back into place once all the traveling's done. And that's basically it.
Yeah, but then they lie about that because he later says, if you go back in time with me, you'll never be here again. When he's in 2022,
That's right.
when they go back to 2018. They fuck with time. Here's the thing about time travel and the space-time continuum.
Tell us more, Dr. Spock.
I'm doing the little Dr. Spock hands. There is no rules because we don't know how it works. So that's my Jerry Seinfeld. We don't know how it works.
What's this thing with time travel?
What is time travel? It always drives me crazy with time travel because you can do whatever the fuck you want because there's no actual stated rule of it's this or that. And with this movie, they said it's this, then it was this, then it was that. It was all over the fucking time travel map.
I think that I disagree a little bit, only in the sense that I think that using past films and literature as templates have given us like a basis for what we buy into. Doesn't mean I agree with you. You can do whatever you want. But, like H.G. Wells basically postulated that, if I move this object to the other side of the wall, then in the future it'll appear there. And, Doc Brown kind of did that with the DeLorean and the Back to the Future. You kind of get a sense that you can, do something in the past and it can maybe be brought back or viewed in the future. And that's sort of a basis. And in this one, to Dave's point, they kind of go in a million directions and they miss. I think this film was an entertaining miss opportunity. And I think they were so caught up in this sort of bringing in the sci-fi elements with these dissolving stormtroopers and lightsabers and the arc reactor from all of this stuff that they missed the opportunity to play with time. That I know it becomes a different film if it's like, it's like, what was the 13 going on 30 when you would just have a actor play his younger self, but sort of the fun you can have with, Ryan Reynolds is meeting his young self, and I get that he doesn't want to give information away. And there was one scene where he takes on these bullies that was kind of fun, where basically he's like, you need to lose this fight, but I can't tell you need to lose this fight. That was kind of a fun moment, and I would have liked to have seen more with that. And likewise with the dynamic with the mother and how he has to resolve the fact that he can't express affection for her because he's mad at her for kind of doing what she's supposed to do, which is to get them through the loss of their dad, his dad. And I just felt like I would have liked to have seen more with going back in time and meeting yourself or seeing your father back. I mean, those are the things that I think I would have preferred to see than just sort of chases and lasers.
I liked chases and lasers. It was one of my favorite RPG games as a kid. We played it a lot. In fact, Cinema Craptaculus is brought to you by Chases and Lasers. Be a nerd in your own basement.
Speaking of chases and lasers, I love that in the future, all military combat gloves and weaponry is basically Nintendo.
Yeah, the power glove.
Yeah, the power glove. Yeah, you know how to use this, kid? Here, sure. Oh, sure I do. Zap, he throws it on, and he's like taking out planes, he's taking out cars, he's blowing shit up. And I was like, wow, so we just apparently the military gives up in the future, everybody. And they're like, you know what? The Atari 2600 was close enough. Let's just use this joystick. Just use a joystick. Can we send Putin a joystick right now? And speaking of which, I agree with you though, because I wanted you want those scenes that you can connect to, right?
Yeah.
And I love the scene in the bar with him and Jennifer Garner. I thought that was really sweet. And I thought I even wanted it to go have a little more to it, back and forth of winking, he was like Dear Abby in that scene.
Yes.
Because it was like, wow, he's really evolved. He's really, really, really evolved. And it's interesting that he understood that about his mother, but didn't understand that about his father. Because Mark, Ruffalo, or how do you say his name? Anyone?
Ruffalo.
The Incredible Hulk.
Like Buffalo.
Ruffalo, thank you. The Hulk has to explain it to him, but he fully got it with his mother, and that's another little thing where it's like, okay, so you realized it with one parent, but you couldn't realize it with the other. I don't know.
Well, I kind of got that because Ryan Reynolds has spent a lifetime being angry at his dad for maybe something that his dad never did or did do. He left when he was 10. He died.
Left? I guess getting hit by a car is leaving.
Wow. Way to go,
Is
Dave.
that what
Hatred. Today's Cinema Craptaculus is brought to you by hatred.
John,
tell more
he
about
died.
it.
He got killed.
By bitterness.
We make it sound Ryan makes it sound like he walked out on them. No, he got hit by a car.
Listen, I don't want Dave giving the
But
eulogy.
right before he got hit by a car, he walked out on them.
That is true.
He
opened
the door and left.
I don't want Dave giving my eulogy. I'll be dead. He'll be like, so Steve left.
Clearly, Steve couldn't make it here today.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Is Steve coming or not, you guys?
No, Steve left.
What's with the big box over here?
I will say I was
this boring guy.
Hey, Craptaculars, we'll be right back. And now, back to the show.
I was glad that in that bar scene that we didn't go down the Marty McFly and Lane McFly route. You kind of got that little sense of, wait a minute, is she kind of getting attracted to her own? Fortunately, Sean Levy had the maturity and restraint to not go down that route. But I was kind of nervous, like, oh God, is she going to be attracted to him?
That's surprising.
Ryan Reynolds is attractive.
If Stephanie wrote the show,
no, and
it would be like,
it's impressive.
Everybody everywhere would be like, oh my God. Even the guy who was trying to kill him would be like, but you're so fine.
It's impressive that Sean Levy. It's impressive that Sean Levy did that. I mean, after Schitt's Creek, I was expecting this to be like a lot funnier.
What? Oh, I get it.
It's a Levy joke.
He's another Levy.
All these Levies look alike. Okay, go ahead.
You know what I discovered? Okay, so this is a detour, but like, has anyone ever heard of Zombie Nightmare? I think it was covered in Mystery Science Theater.
No.
Sean Levy's in it. He plays the guy who's like the worst of the teen villains, who does all the murdering, and and I was like, oh, I've been familiar with you, Mr. Levy, for a long time.
I know who you are.
Is it Levy or Levy?
Maybe if you're in Canada, it's something one or the other. I don't know.
He's not Canadian.
Right. No, but the other ones are, and this was shot in Canada, so maybe he had to change his pronunciation at the border.
Sure.
I got to say, Sean Levy is probably the busiest man in show business. I looked at that cat's resume, and I forgot that he didn't just produce Stranger Things, but he directed a lot of the episodes. But he produces. I mean, granted, that's a company, and I get he's got people that works with him, but he has his hands in so much stuff, and he's not as old as I thought he was. He's kind of on the younger side. So we're going to be seeing a lot of him and Ryan Reynolds, because they just announced he's in talks to do Deadpool 3. But he's a very safe director. And I think this film felt very safe. Like, I get it. They wanted it to be a family film. But then they had these little moments of like kind of Ryan Reynolds little perverted humor where like the kid's excited, like, so do I get laid in the future? Not going there. It happens. You know, like these little moments of so like, cute. But it's kind of like you're watching. I'm watching it with my son, and you kind of get in the mode of it's harmless. It's kind of got Marvel action, but then these little bits of that subversive humor. I probably would have enjoyed more of that, but maybe I'm glad that it didn't.
I mean, it was just enough. It tipped a toe in, like with the condom. Like he was like, "Oh yeah, you look like a condom with buttons," because that shirt was too tight. His jacket was too tight.
Do you guys feel they shoehorned the romantic angle? I mean, and just to have like a love interest, because Zoe Saldana is showed up for her little 5 seconds at the beach house and her little bit at the end, but really, like, what? Like,
it's to show that adult Ryan Reynolds has a life. Like, otherwise, he would not have a life in the future. And
because the future isn't shown to us, and it's frustrating because he makes it sound like it's Michael Biehn scrolling through the ashes, holding onto a photo of Linda Hamilton. You know what I mean? We see none of it. We don't get any sense other than evil businesswoman in the future has a big gun. And again, were they stormtroopers? Were they background actors from Tron? What were those thugs?
They were corporate cops.
So, why did they vanish?
They were mall cops.
Do you guys know
That's
why
what I wanted. Why did they vanish? They never explained that. Did they? They just all of a sudden turned into snapshot dust.
Because I didn't know if that was the weapon that did it, or if it was just that they just disappear when you touch them.
They're also just the worst army I've ever seen in my life. There were none of them were well trained. They were just
they make stormtroopers look like Navy SEALs.
What's great about that is that they probably have never had to do this before. So they're like, do we? Like, I wonder also if they weren't being killed, if they were being sent back to their time or something like that.
Or
their temporal. I mean, I don't know.
We should do a short about one of those guys, and he's like in the future, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go back to 2018 and kill some dude." He's like, "Really? Will I be back in time for Jeopardy tonight?"
Yeah, I just put my burrito in the microwave. I was like, "We're time traveling. It'll be fine." fine. And then they get back and the burrito's burned.
Here's a question then. When everyone gets, like, at the very end, they blow up the machine, time resets, I guess, and everyone's kind of back to normal. Like the son, young Ryan Reynolds goes back to his mom, Mark Ruffalo has still left them, and then old Ryan Reynolds is like back in back in his time, and he meets Zoe's Saldana. How do you pronounce her last name?
You're saying it right, Saldana.
Saldana meets her for the first time, and you know that they're going to fall in love. So everything has reset for everyone. These corporate cops, are they like thrown back into the timeline as well? Like, do they come back to life?
Well, they never knew they died. They never knew they died, just like everybody else. I mean, you got to look at it that way.
Yeah.
And he meets Zoe Saldana at the most poorly lit university I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how anyone learns anything there. It was really dark. I was like, turn a light on. Can we take a second and talk about the dog?
It was a planetarium, wasn't it?
It looked like it.
But the hallway, too.
The film is actually a very simple film. It's literally, we have to turn a knob to destroy time travel to prevent bad things from happening. It's very simple. But again, I would have liked to see more of those playfulness. They do barely mention Biff Tannen. And yet they miss an opportunity to play with that, where Ryan Reynolds like, I'm going to rest up and I'm going to plan how I can invest in Yahoo and Google. And I'm like, is he joking?
To intercept the ball and run the other direction with
it's like, wait a minute, are you actually joking that you're going to do that? Or why don't you do that? Why don't you be Biff Tannen and make yourself a billionaire for the future? It's like they don't do anything to set up how they're going to change.
He was joking. Like okay. How much more fun do you need, John?
When I say fun, John, I mean complexity. Like, actually, don't you think that it just was very simple? Now, maybe that was so it could be family friendly, but at least, and when I say simple, I don't mean like it has to be a convoluted plot. I just think you need to have more kind of adventurous moments, and not just, I guess Dave's okay with space lasers and chases, but
well, they had a mission.
It's chases and lasers, and it was my favorite RPG game as a kid.
Well, they were on a mission, John. They were on a mission. They needed to get Chip done. They needed to, get the dad. They needed to also, Ryan Reynolds needed to let Zoe Saldana go. They had all of those things. And they even had that joke about Biff, so it's like they did
okay,
recognize.
I'm using, maybe I'm not explaining myself. I'm using Back to the Future as the gold standard. Back to the Future is a very simple plot. All Marty has to do is get back in time, get back to the present, and also clean up a mistake where he accidentally got in the way of his parents' meeting and he jeopardizes his existence. So he has to reunite his parents, get back to the present. Very simple. And then in that journey, all of these little kind of mishaps and adventures and moments happen. And I'm trying to think back to the Adam Project, and there's a lot of quipping. And they have to go to a college and find their dad. But there weren't a lot of sort of mishaps and adventures. Other than like the chase in the forest, with Zoe Saldana.
That won't work, Steve. I think what you're reacting to is the fact that they don't dive deep into the subject matter of time travel. Time travel's not really the central point of the story. That's just the thing that kicks us off. And they're not playing with that, except for where they're diving deep is to the emotional story between Ryan Reynolds and his mother, young Ryan Reynolds and his mother, and then old Ryan Reynolds and his father, and young Ryan Reynolds and his father, and then the two Ryan Reynolds together. And those are the beats that they're kind of hitting more than like than whatever else there is.
The adventure sci-fi beats.
Yeah.
I mean, and let me ask you guys, as men in the 21st century.
Oh, that's my favorite show. Men of the 21st Century.
This podcast brought to you by Men of the 21st Century. Wednesdays on Fox.
No.
Did that work for you? Did those emotional beats work for you?
I thought for the most part, the emotional beats worked for me. I really enjoyed those moments. And I thought there was complexity within those moments. I did think that overall, though, there was a little warmth lost because it felt with Ryan Reynolds' kind of humor and the Deadpool kind of humor up front, I felt it was a little cold. So it was like there was the complex emotions, but a lot of times it came off cold because Ryan Reynolds and the other kid were coming off as cold.
I cried when The young Ryan Reynolds walked in, and his dog was laying in the lap of the old Ryan Reynolds. That's all it took for me. And I want to talk more about the dog as much
Yes.
as possible.
Yes.
I want the dog to have when they blow up something happened. Something came flying through the sliding glass doors or something, and the dog was there. And I'm like, what happened to the dog? Where's the dog? Like, I was so into the dog. And I wanted the dog to take out at least one or two, if not three, of the troopers. Like, I wanted the dog to push somebody into someone else and help Ryan Reynolds like zap him into like that. So
Yes.
like, yeah, they kind of dropped the dog thing, but I think that I think the story
We got to
beats
see him as
where
a puppy.
yeah, that I liked that little transition. I felt overall that, again, this is one of those movies that I can see the story cards. Like, I'm looking at your background right now, Dave. I can see the note cards on the board, and it's like this needs to happen. And when you sit there and you're like, okay, where's the flow? How are we getting there? Is this smooth? Nope. Here's what I'm supposed to feel here. Here's what needs to hear action wise here. We need a beat of this here. Love interest needs to come in here. It always, to me, like, you can feel it in movies. And we've discussed this in the past. Go back and revisit Cinema Craptaculus here on Cinema Craptaculus. That's a plug for the own plug.
Yeah. Cinema Craptaculus is brought to you by Cinema Craptaculus.
But you get what I'm saying, is like, if a movie doesn't flow like that, it feels that clunky thing. What always helps is, Ryan Reynolds is charming as fuck. He's always charming. But the thing too is he's always playing that guy. He's always playing that guy. It's rare that you not see him play that guy. So
right. I mean, that's his prerogative. I mean, there's so many people who get by just playing themselves.
Sure.
Why not Ryan?
Exactly.
Well, I think to go back to what Dave said is I agree a bit with the emotional beats. I think that part of it is not that Ryan isn't capable, but I think that there's been a glut. He just had the misfortune of a lot of his films being released all at once, it seems like. Free Guy was supposed to come out in like early 2020, and it dropped just last year. And he had the red coat or whatever, the one with Dwayne and Gal Gadot. And
that's right.
and I follow him on social media, so I see a lot of his ads.
Are you
so
friends?
I drink aviation gin.
Right, I'm drinking aviation gin right now.
Craptaculus.
Yeah, you two are.
Mint Mobile is going to be sponsoring this ad.
Oh, one of your best friends. Got it.
So, I like Ryan Reynolds, but I think that he kind of like Dwayne Johnson. He's a little overexposed, and his personality, I think, overrides some of those emotional beats. I think that, we can count on him to be funny and witty. And I think a lot of that funny and witty is almost the same in every film. But, with Deadpool, he's able to switch gears and do funny things because he can break the fourth wall. And in the other projects, he can't. And I think when it's just a straightforward narrative, he needs to be counted on to really pull those emotional beats. And I don't know if they didn't really want to make it too. I think Ruffalo is kind of the one that kind of anchors the film a little emotionally, because he is sort of the more, I don't want to say grounded actor of all of them, because that discredits Jennifer Garner, who I think I would have liked to have seen more in the last act. But I think that overall, I think Steve's point's well taken. If you like Ryan Reynolds, you're going to like this movie. And in the emotional beats, I think they're there. I mean, I think if you're a parent or a dog owner or have suffered some loss, or, I have dreams about time travel, going back to see my parents. So this film kind of hit a lot of those things. But Dave, I think you're right. There was just something a little cold that could have made those warm moments really gush, right?
I think that Ryan Reynolds is, well, first of all, I wasn't overexposed to him just because I didn't watch Free Guy and I didn't watch the Red Thing. But I do remember watching Six Underground with you guys.
Oh, yes.
And while he did have his time to shine, it really didn't feel like a Ryan Reynolds vehicle, if that makes sense. And I feel like this movie is closer to his sweet spot, where there's action and there's, some warm moments, lots of opportunity for quips, and handled by a director who knows how to really pull out the comedic timing. And I think I thought that this was sort of, you mentioned The Rock, and it's like, well, The Rock is not a great actor, and he's not like, he's not the worst actor, but he's also kind of not the same kind of actor.
The Rock probably can't pull off as much emotional depth and warmth than Ryan Reynolds can. But they're both personality-based actors, I think.
Right. But Ryan Reynolds was a child actor too, so it's sort of like, well, he's probably much more seasoned in that, in those hitting those highs and lows, but I don't know what I'm talking about.
He was pretty good in that. What was that movie where he's like buried alive? Was it called Buried Alive?
Yeah,
And
probably.
he's basically wakes up in a casket, and Dave is up above at the funeral saying, "Well, Ryan's not
He
here.
left.
Ryan left.
Ryan left.
I think you're thinking of The Descent, or as I like to call it, as you know, it's decent. The Descent. Go ahead.
No, it's no.
We just rewatched it. It's such a good movie.
It's decent.
Is it better than The Changeling?
No.
With Sean Levy directing this, I didn't realize he was so big on Stranger Things as well, which when I saw this trailer, I was like, this feels very much like an 80s movie. Did it feel like an 80s movie to you guys?
Had that Last Starfighter vibe with the whole video game, and those skills will come in handy later. But that doesn't make it 80s. It just reminded me of that.
I thought that there was a lot. Okay, here's what I want to say. So buckle up. A lot of things were going through my mind as I was watching this movie. The first of which was, yes, this feels like it's the closest I've seen in a while for a movie or some sort of media to hit that 80s adventure button as strongly as Stranger Things that first season did. But in a totally different way. Like it was not, yes, it was still, there were some elements you kind of see where it was kind of overly structured or written by committee. As John was saying, like, yeah, they had these boards that they're like, okay, this has to go here. But
Steve said that.
Steve, okay. This episode brought to you by pointing fingers.
Lens crafters. all podcasters look alike. Continue, Stephanie.
I missed that.
So like the thing I'm trying to say is that I felt like this was closest in the vibe to that 80s nostalgic without being 80s nostalgic on purpose. And I mean, it has a lot to do with the kid. It has a lot to do with his vibe in the movie. It was just fun. He was snarky, but it wasn't annoying. He wasn't obnoxious. There was a little bit of time. There was like one scene where I was thinking, this kid needs to get popped. Because he was sassing a little too much he was sassing his mom a little too much. Where I was like, I'm gonna like smack you. But they addressed that.
He had a very punchable face, as Ryan said.
But they addressed specifically, like, don't talk to your mom like that. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, good. So we have some ground here to,
Here's a question I have for you all. Would the movie have worked better? Not to say it didn't work, because I did enjoy it. But would the movie have worked better if we set it in present day, let's say even 2025, and he went back to 1985 or 1990 or would it have resonated more with you that way? If it did feel a little more, just go for it, be a little more like Back to the Future, but would the movie have resonated more for you, or it wouldn't have mattered?
I have to say, I really, I don't know if it would matter. Things that I really appreciated about this movie was the fact that they didn't linger. They didn't linger on trying to explain anything too much, and they just got into the meat of the movie. For example, usually in a movie like this, you have the moment where like the kid does something, and then you see the older person do the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, you can tell that there's the same. There was never that kind of question. He just walked in, and he's like, "You're me." Yes, I am. Okay, let's move on.
Well, also, don't you think that's part of a Netflix movie? Because don't you find that Netflix movies almost know that someone's going to give them only about a minute and a half before they're going to click to something else to watch? Because their movies don't have much setup to them.
You're right.
That's a very good point.
Their movies
I think the thing with the Netflix movie and a lot of these projects is, they don't have to go through, they're not going to have to rely on a big opening weekend or have to go impress foreign audiences. So they're not going to get test screened. So a lot of these, like the last acts of some of these films on Netflix, clearly, if this was a studio release in the theaters, it would have probably been rewritten. I'm not saying it'd be better, but I think these films kind of get a pass. So they probably didn't touch this script except for Ryan Reynolds adding the joke. So whatever worked or didn't work, to Steve's point, it doesn't really matter. If they get 30 minutes of viewing out of it, or into it, maybe a half the movie, that's a win for the streamer. So they don't worry about like if the plot's not working or if the final act has some mechanical issues, because they just want to get some eyeballs on there for a while.
Yeah, and to your point, Steve, about it being like, would it have been cooler if it went, to the 90s or something? I'm thinking, I've seen that. And then it becomes a movie about how funny the 90s were.
We would have raked it over the coals for ripping off Back to the Future.
Well, yeah, I mean, because the thing is that the toothpaste is already out of the tube. Back to the Future did its thing. It was novel at the time because it showed people in a time period that hadn't been examined from an 80s lens. We do that daily now. We go and go, look how crazy we were in 1999. Look how awesome it was in 2010. You know, and it's
look how awesome
okay,
it was.
like I've
Look
seen
how,
that.
Look how awesome it was in 2019. Oh my God, life was so great 3 years ago.
None of those extras are wearing masks.
Right.
Oh my God, we should do a time travel movie back to 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
No, but I agree with you.
We were thin.
I agree with you on. Remember we were thin. I agree with you. No, but I agree with you on that. And I just, like I said, I feel like Netflix series are so much better produced in some ways because they take the time to plot it out. They know they've got 10 episodes, they know they've got 8 episodes, and if you go and look at any Netflix series, even like the one I just watched with Anna, what's her face, Anna Karenina,
Anna Delvey,
that one,
Anne of Green Gables.
I had friends.
That's right.
I had friends say to me, God, it's so slow. And I said, because you're so used to Netflix things being like boom, 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 like happening so fast, where I really enjoyed it. But I find that with so many Netflix movies, like we come in hot, starting hot, we jump whole pieces of storyline. We're just sort of plugging away the things that a viewer needs to see in 1 hour and 38 minutes, and boom, you're out. So that's how I feel about it. Well,
yeah.
Can we discuss one other thing? Sorry, go ahead.
Can I just say one thing on that matter of a movie like this? I find can be frustrating when you go in. You know it's about time travel. You know he's going to meet himself because you've seen the trailer, and you go in and like the first 20 minutes is spent on that, and it drives me insane because I know this is going to happen. Just get to the part where it happens so that we can get to the good part. So in some ways, I like that.
And they did reference it. He was like, wow, you're really okay with this.
Yeah.
Right? Didn't he say he's like, wow, you really got on board with that idea? Okay. They could turn it into a joke. I think they handled it in a good way. I agree with you that they needed to get to the point. We know what was going to happen when we bought the tickets. We didn't really buy any tickets. I mean, I know I didn't. I hope you guys didn't buy any.
I say let him crash.
Yeah, exactly. They knew what they were getting into when they bought the tickets. I say let them crash. I say that all the time in my family. Yeah, so the thing is that here's the thing. The nostalgia of it all. Oh, Dave, what were you gonna say?
I was looking at my notes, and there's one big note that when it came to the end and the credit sequence came up and it said written by Jonathan Tropper, I was floored because Jonathan Tropper is a novelist who's wrote This Is Where I Leave You, One More Thing Before I Go, Plan B. He's written all these kind of like 30-somethings coming of age books, and they're fantastic books. And the movie This Is Where I Leave You is a great movie. You should see it. But it kind of I don't know.
The book is way better. The book is way better.
Hipster
the book is way better. I'm sorry to interrupt for one quick second here. The book, go read the book and then watch the movie, and your jaw will drop. The book is 100 times better than the fucking movie.
It is 100 times better than.
Okay,
but the movie.
What are you talking about?
Reading is fundamental. This Is Where I Leave You.
This Is Where I Leave You.
Today's podcast brought to you by Random House.
Okay, all right. Well, can I?
Scholastic.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say a big thing that occurred to me while I was watching this movie is that this was such a well done movie for me based on something that was not already existing IP. It was an original screenplay.
Yes.
That screenplay was not based on a comic book. It was not based on another movie. It was not based on, a podcast. Like it was just somebody who took pen to paper and wrote this script like a decade ago or more. And the end result was great. The end result was entertaining. I didn't feel like, but who are these characters? I don't know. I was thinking please let this be another example that we need to figure out a way to do more original stories.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong
and don't
with
set
that.
it up for a sequel. Let us have some resolution and finality, and
Yeah.
you can feel good about that, because you hit it on the nail. So many movies now, if they're going to have that kind of budget, they're being set up as a franchise, and we need to
Yeah,
just.
and I'm programmed to I actually waited. I went through the credits to see if there was another thing because
know.
I've been brainwashed into
Yeah,
thinking that that's
where's
what
the
movies are.
post credits Easter egg, or yeah.
I have a
Steve, what were you
question.
gonna say?
Well, I have two things to say. What podcast movie based on a podcast is there that you can name? Because I'm ready to sell mine, and you can sell your. Let's just sell podcast movies.
Well, there was that one with Julia Roberts on Netflix.
The Homecoming on Hulu.
The Homecoming on.
Or was it Hulu or Prime?
It was Prime.
Okay.
And I think there's another one.
Oh my God, he's being serious.
The thing about Pam.
Yeah, totally.
They're all going to be like murder dirt or stuff, you know.
Yeah,
but yeah. I mean, I think The Homecoming is one of the fictional podcasts that went to movie or television.
Yeah,
All right.
There's fictional
But
and
there's
there's true
another
crime.
Well, just keep telling me I'm stupid. Just make me look like a fool right now. Okay, here's my other question.
Okay. Wait.
Steve.
Before we rate this movie,
No, I have a real
Steve
question.
had a question.
I have a question. My question is this. This movie basically could have also been called, cast by the Avengers. Did it throw anybody else that
13 going on 30.
Right, but did it throw anybody else? Exactly. Did it throw anybody else that 3 of the leads were Avengers?
No, because everybody's an Avenger. You know that. Like the MCU is like the entire everyone in Hollywood has appeared in an MCU movie. The end.
You put the U in MCU.
It's
Well,
kind
here's
of
the
like
thing.
all of our shows are hosted by people who have worked at Walt Disney.
Well, also, I have something.
It's like
I have something to tell you all. Then on that note, okay, go ahead. I started taking my shirt off like I was an Avenger. Like I was gonna be an Avenger.
It looked like Chippendales.
I think the MCU
maybe.
is like community. Isn't MCU like community college? It's like everybody's done kind of like their two years, and now they're going to other stuff.
Jury
Yeah.
duty.
It's like
jury duty for Hollywood and stage actors.
It's like Marvel, DC Expanded Universe, and Fast and the Furious. It's just those 3.
Yeah.
And like if you're in one of those, sometimes you're in 2 of those. Like Gal.
I have.
It's
never
like the
seen
RSC for a while.
Fast
It was
and the
just sort of
Furious.
community college for the Harry Potter movies.
Mm-hmm.
You've never seen Fast and the Furious?
I've never seen one
start
Fast
with Fast
or
and
Furious.
Furious 4 and don't look back.
I'm surprised.
Don't start with 4. Start with 5.
I think
Start
in the
with
10th
5
one
and
they
which one
involve
was-
the 10th one involves time travel. You know that, right?
Oh, well, why not?
Yeah, they've already introduced super soldiers as well. So
Yeah.
it's one of those 3 guys. I'm serious.
They're going to go back in
Everybody has
time
be
to
one.
save Paul Walker, and they're going to digitally bring him back.
Oh,
Which one?
no.
Which
They-
one has?
no,
Which
they
one has
all
Guy
kinda-
Fieri in it? Which one has Guy Fieri in it? Which Fast and Furious?
What?
In a way, which one doesn't?
Aren't we all Guy Fieri?
Yes.
Isn't Guy Fieri in all
mean-
of us?
Don't you want to wear your sunglasses on the back of your head? So, shall we rate this movie?
Yes.
Let's rate it. We've got a 3-tiered rating system here at Cinema Craptaculus. The top tier, Cinema Craptaculus, or for this movie, About Time. This is a must-watch. You gotta see it. The second tier is Craptaculus, or just passing time. Pretty good on an afternoon. And then the third tier, Utter Crap. No time at all. Avoid this movie like it's the pandemic. I'll go first. I thought I'm giving this Craptaculus, just passing time. It just felt a little, for me, just fell short of being really special because I spoke to it being a little cold, and it felt maybe just a little too, hits all 4 quadrants.
Oh, you hate the kids. You're like, fuck them kids.
I am. Fuck the kids.
That's not how you say it. I would say
Good point.
I would give it the top tier rating, the It's about time because of what I said about let's make a really fun original movie. Let's make a fun movie that feels like it gave me the same feeling that a Marvel movie would give, or like, that fun kind of adventure with a lot of heart, but still brings the funny, in such a cheesy way to say that. But I really appreciate. I was pleasantly surprised. I had zero expectations, and I went in cold, knowing that I had to watch it, and I ended up smiling when the movie ended. I had a smile on my face, and that's rare. Someone as jaded and cynical as I. So that's why I give it the top tier.
John, Steve.
Oh,
Steve,
me?
go ahead.
I'm gonna follow. I'm gonna follow Stephanie's lead here, and I'm gonna give it a top tier of About Time. It was enjoyable. I listen. Back in the day, we watched so many horrible Craptaculus movies, most of which forced upon us by Dave that I had to go to a fucking Redbox 3 towns away to find. I had to hook my goddamn DVR back up, or sometimes a VCR up. But that said, I love Dave, and I give Dave a top tier timeout as well, or whatever it's called. But no, I give it a top rating. I think that it was enjoyable. It was 1 hour and 38 minutes. I enjoy Ryan Reynolds, and I love me some Jennifer Garner. Like, I can watch Jennifer Garner read the phone book. She's charming. She's delightful. And I feel bad for her with everything that happened with Ben Affleck. So I kind of want to support her. John?
Yes.
I think I'll go with About Time too. I think I was hovering closer to the just mild on an afternoon like Dave did, but I think you guys kind of won me over to some of its charms. I think I also
win you over with this, but Thunder Force is like, no, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Two women can't have an entertaining movie.
No,
not in 2022.
But
let me grow out my beard.
I think okay, so to say an entertaining film, I think that film was 140 minutes. So that extra 2 minutes pushed it over into some yawn territory. I think again this falls into just like Adam Sandler and Johnson and McCarthy herself. If you like that lead actor and you find them charming, then you'll sort of automatically be predisposed to enjoy it. And I think to Stephanie's point, it was original, but it did hit some of those familiar beats that I like. Obviously, because I kept bringing up fucking Back to the Future so much, that obviously that's a film I love. But I appreciated that this film kind of didn't go back in time so that we're doing like Stephanie said, we're not going to comment on 2005 and look, we have flip phones. They didn't do any of that. They just kind of kept the story going to where it needed to go. I think there were some missed opportunities. I think some of the missed opportunities were with the mom, frankly. I would have liked to have seen a little more of Ryan having fun with how to change or not change the future with himself. Like, no, I can't tell you that. But overall, I think it did what it was supposed to do. And I think with that amazing Avengers cast, it felt like an Avengers movie, but only 138 minutes.
Yay. And it was standalone.
That we know of. It did so well, they're probably going to go and just announce Sean Levy and Ryan Reynolds are reuniting for the Ashley project. He's got a daughter.
No, he's in drag. He has to go in drag this time.
No. Yeah. And there's 3
Medea.
Ryan Reynolds this time.
Multiples.
They put yes, exactly, and they like put him into the scenes from this movie, so it's even cheaper to make.
By the way, I just want to say real quick that Katherine Keener really kind of like ripped off her own character from The Incredibles too. It was basically this sort of techno whiz, and then there's a red herring where it turns out that she's the villain all along. That was kind of the same character. I'm just
spoiler alert. Haven't seen it. Jesus.
Oh.
Yeah, she was like, "Hey, writers, this is the character you're gonna make for this character because that's the only character I play."
And Stephanie,
and Jonathan Troper was like, "Okay."
You just spoiled.
Per Stephanie, shout out for being respectful to end credits. Let the end credits be. So I think that deserves a big props.
Yeah, 5 stars.
5 stars for the end credits.
So, Steve, thank you for joining us. Where can people find you? When does your podcast drop, as the vernacular is?
Yes, sir.
I always get nervous when people ask me where they can find me because I always come up with really wrong answers. I'm in the bushes outside your house. I'm here right now. I'm right behind you.
I want to know who I'm looking at.
I'm on the toilet.
I'm on your toilet.
He's in your bedroom. Bathroom.
World Gone Good happens every Wednesday. Wherever you pod best, you can go to worldgonegoodpodcast.com. You can go to any platform, including the one you're listening on right now, and listen to us as well. And these three jerks, if you scroll back on the episode guide, you'll find a show with these three idiots called Bad Movies Gone Good, where we talk about what's good about a bad movie. So thank you for having me back. Right. Thank you for welcoming me with open arms. Thank you for making me feel like I could go back in time and be part of something. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna stop it. Stop it. Okay, I'm okay.
Steve, I really miss you, but I miss the gourmet pizza more than anything.
Oh, yeah. God, we used to have good pizza.
Oh, I found a new gourmet pizza place that's fantastic.
Are we sponsored by that place?
No. That's why I'm not saying the name.
Oh,
not
okay.
that I forget the name of it. It's
no free plugs.
I think it's called 685.
You know, one thing about Steve's show that people need to be forewarned is that you can be inspired, but you also feel so lazy and worthless, because he recently had like this mother-daughter duo, and that daughter has accomplished more in like 13 or 14 years than like most people who've had like triple majors and gotten their PhD. So the people that you get are they're not just good, they are like wickedly accomplished in their own way. You know what I mean?
It's amazing that kid is 13 years old and has finished her first semester of college. It's like, it's unreal, right? But also, I mean, we just sometimes just talk good subjects. We talk, about, we did a whole show about love. We did a whole show about musicals. We did a whole show with you guys about bad movies. It's just, try to get people to like we're doing right here. Turn off for, 30, 40, 1 hour, 3 hours, whatever at the time this turns out to be. Feels like 3 hours. Turn it off and
hour 38.
Feel good. You know what I mean? And just feel good for a bit. So thank you. Thank you for having me back. I'm available anytime. Translation, do not fucking call me again.
Steve, now because you're back and because it's a time travel movie, you got to sing us out on something.
Ooh, yes.
Back in time.
I wanted to go back in time, but I wanted to be. I wanted to be more clever than that. I wanted to do something about like.
If I could save time?
Oh no! Okay, yeah. Or time after time. Ryan Reynolds after Ryan Reynolds. Some of this movie had bad sets. We didn't even talk about the bad set.
Yes, we did.
We briefly mentioned it.
Time after time.
If you're lost, you can get in your spaceship. Go back in time.
If you need to see a little boy who kind of looks like the kid from Love Actually, watch this movie tonight.
Well, thanks for joining us on this Cinema Craptaculus journey. This is Dave, and ever present with me are
Stephanie
and John.
And remember, a bad movie is just as hard to make as a good one. It's just a lot easier to make fun of. Now this is the singing part.
Oh yeah, we have to cut that, put that in there.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema Craptaculus. If you'd like to hear all our other episodes, including our other shows like B-Sides, The Expanded Universe, and Terror Tunnel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our new episodes. Go to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, rate us. Give us a good review, we hope. It helps get the Craptaculus word out. And be sure to follow us on social media, @Craptaculus on Instagram and Twitter. We're also on Facebook, and you can find more content at cinemacraptaculus.com.